Hey everybody,
Hey.
we're here to kick off the design track. It's pretty exciting.
It is.
We're going to talk about designing for voice and really taking the best practices from the design practices you may know in web and mobile and screenplay writing and so forth and bringing them into voice. I'm excited to be here with Anna. Hi Anna.
Hello, everyone.
Anna did all the editing and production of the design guide.
Yeah, it was a big undertaking. You should definitely check it out. It will help you design much more Alexa skills.
Packed full of tips.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this. It seems like every big technological shift includes a new way of interacting with your computing. I mean, I remember mouse, and I remember prescribing, hey everybody, go play solitaire, because people didn't understand double click, click and drag, and how you use it. They would like look at their hand and then look at the screen and go, why isn't it moving? Look at their hand, look at the screen, right? I mean, it was just a common thing. So I would literally say, hey, you must go play solitaire. The same kind of thing happened again about a decade later, it seems, where you have the phone and you have touch and the internet with you in your pocket. You're like, this is amazing. Yep. And then you're like pinching and zooming all the time.
Yeah, it didn't really fit that small form factor at all. And it was really hard in the first couple of years to really use your cell phone.
Right, and so the community came together and the community said, what could touch be? What could a mouse and keyboard be? And they made the new thing. They came up with the new design patterns. And that's what we're going through in voice right now. It's that new technology shift, and the community is really coming together to build out some stuff. And so with that, we've been able to watch what everybody's building, see all the latest, greatest stuff, and sort of synthesize together some of the best practices that are emerging. And in particular, we want to talk about some of the things that are actually best practices in web and mobile, but hurt you in voice. They're not actually things you should bring with you.
Indeed.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go through a skill, and we will walk you through what the skill is, how it works, and then tear down the best practices that we see throughout this.
So the skill we're going to look at today is called College Coach, and it's a skill designed for students and parents to find the best college for the student and do it in a hopefully stress-free experience. So Alexa will coach them as they go through each and every day, and it's a repetitive skill where they need to come back and report back to Alexa.
Cool. All right, so let's show everybody what this is like. So we've got first tip number one is you write a script and you talk through it. So we've got our script here, and one of us will pretend to be human and one will pretend to be Alexa. All right, who wants to be human?
Are you going to pretend to be human?
Oh, she's going to stretch me. Okay, I will try to be human. All right. Me. Ready? All right,
ready.
Alexa, open College Coach.
Welcome to College Coach. Each day I'll ask you some questions and give you a school to research. You tell me which schools you like or don't like, and I'll help you find the right school for you. Where would you like to go to school?
I don't know.
No problem. Which state are you interested in?
Colorado.
Colorado, nice. For your first assignment, check out Colorado University at Boulder. Check them out on social media and see if you like the community they're fostering. Come back tomorrow and tell me what you think.
Great. So there's a very first experience. Like you get in, you get an orientation to the skill, and then it gives you an assignment and says, hey, come back tomorrow. So it's got a little bit of retention hook there to get you to come back. So that's a very happy path and gives you a sense of like what the skill can do. Let's look at the next experience. This is when the person has come back 5 times in a row. So you're like, Alexa, open College Coach.
Wow, 5 times in a row. Great work. Out of 5 stars, how would you rate University of Denver?
That's a 4 stars.
Great, I'm glad you liked it. What degree program are you interested in studying?
I'd like to be an engineer.
All right, that helps me narrow down the search. Here's your assignment. Go research Colorado State University and check out the course offerings to see which classes are interesting. Come back tomorrow and tell me what you think.
Great. So that's another very happy path. Everything worked the way you would expect it. You answered the questions. It also gave you a little bit of different flavor. Like the first time said, check out what the atmosphere of the school is, and this is more about the course curriculum.
Yeah, we're kind of narrowing down and making it more personal to what the information that you're giving Alexa. So she's disseminating it and figuring out what is going to interest you to get you to come back tomorrow.
And I said, open College Coach, and you said something different in response because it was 5 times in a row. All right, so let's look at another one. And this one is going to be a little stranger and maybe what I would call a little more conversational. So it's got some of these little odd moments in it. All right, let's take a look at this one. Alexa, open College Coach.
Welcome back. Last time you were researching the classes and student life at Western Colorado University. Out of 5 stars, how would you rate Western Colorado University?
It was terrible.
Okay, that sounds like it wasn't a good fit. Let's keep looking. What size school do you prefer?
What is my favorite school?
Your favorite schools are University of Denver, MSU Denver, and Regis University. Do you want to learn more?
I really want to go to a school with a great archery program.
Okay, here's your assignment. Go research Arizona State University's athletic program. Come back tomorrow and let me know what you think.
Okay, so a couple things to notice in there is like, wow, they asked me questions about the size, and I said favorites. They asked me questions about, do you want to learn more about your favorite? And I said athletics. So you can see there's a lot of jumping around in there. So let's break this down into some design principles, and we'll start talking through each one.
So there are 4 design principles that you need to be aware of. The first is be adaptable, be personal, be available, and be relatable. We're going to go through each of them. The first with be adaptable. So this is kind of like letting people speak in their own words and not trying to put words in their mouth or jargon-heavy terms. So in this case, with College Coach, why are we even doing voice? You could just go on the web and find some schools, and that would kind of be a thing. In
fact, our first one was that, right? We basically said, hey, cool, I have an API, and if I fill out all these pieces of the API, I can just call it and give you an answer back. And that does work good on the web, right? Like I fill out a big form, and then I get a response back. It doesn't really work in voice, right?
It was really boring.
It was really boring.
Yeah.
And it didn't get that daily habit routine, and it didn't actually solve the problem that we have, which is prospective students and their parents are nervous about school, and they don't really know what the next steps are. And it's more about the process of picking a school than it is finding the perfect fit.
Definitely. And this is definitely more of a long-term coaching strategy, which seems to do a lot better for voice than an app would do in this case.
Yeah. So in voice, there's this concept, actually in design period, there's this concept of an affordance. An affordance is how you work with something, how you use it. So like a door handle would be an affordance for using a door. In web and mobile, you would have a button, right? And that's an affordance for using a web page or a mobile app. And so in voice, we have to work on the voice model. And really it's around invocation name, utterances, and tense, and slots, and so forth. So let's take a look at particularly the utterances and slots portion.
So utterances, this is what your user is saying to Alexa, and it gets the skill to take an action. So for example, it could be the person saying, oh, I want the best colleges, or I want the best colleges in California, or I want an animal science program in the best college in California. These are all pieces that Alexa needs to take and figure out how they're going to fit into her response back to the user to make it more personal for them.
Yeah, so in web and mobile design, what you might do is think really hard about what text is going to go on the button, right? So you might have a submit button or an upload button or a publish button, right? These kinds of things. And in voice, you do all of those. You just let people say it the way they would say it, and you figure out what you want to map that to.
It's actually kind of cool that you have so much variety that you can work with, but that can also be a bit of a challenge.
Sure. So all of these utterances, they all map into one intent. They said this variety of things, but their intention was to give you more information about a school.
Yeah.
So the intent is what we're ultimately going to be working with. We want to be able to get people to say the right thing to land on that intent. So let's dig into a little bit about slots.
Yeah, so the slot is the part of the utterance that we could have a lot of variation in. So in this example here, we say for colleges with a degree program in a location. So that could be an engineering degree in Colorado, an animal science program in California. It could be any one of those things, and those slots need to map to those intents yet again.
Yeah, great. And now slots can have things like a degree in it, but they can also have other variations. So here's a size. We have big, large, giant. That could be like engineering, art, animal sciences, and so forth. But it can get deeper than that on every slot.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you can use synonyms in the traditional sense of synonyms that, tiny could map to a smidge, really small, minuscule. But there are other things you have to be aware of with Alexa, and that is sounds that are similar. So for example, tree and three, those need to map to the same thing, even though they're completely different concepts.
Right, so it's not like a synonym in the dictionary definition.
Right.
It's an equivalence,
Yeah.
right? And so you can even say entire phrases, right? Like you could say something like, I'd like to, for size, you might say something like, give me something that's cozy and quaint,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, oh, that's a small school, right? And you could choose how you map those together. An important part of building and operating your skill is thinking about this during the design phase, but then also thinking about this as you operate your skill. So if, for example, you didn't think of a cozy and quaint school, you can watch the slot values come through. You're going to get a resolution no match, so you know it wasn't in your list to exist, you can log that and then go, oh, I should actually map that into small or large or whatever it might be. So you can continuously improve your experience.
Yeah, and you shouldn't feel like you're going to get everything all at once. In fact, this system is really adaptable, so you can start learning about how your users are really using the system and the languages that they're using, and then start adapting it to fit them over time.
Great. So that's being adaptable. The next one is about being personal.
Yeah, so you're going to tailor this experience to the user. And we kind of went over this where we had, 5 times in a row, welcome back 5 times in a row.
Right, it's changing everything.
You wanted an engineering program or an archery program. So it's tailoring the experience to that one individual so they can get the most out of the skill.
Yeah, so to look at an example of that, here we have 3 different kinds of welcomes. The person says the exact same thing. They say, Alexa, open College Coach, right? First time, it's like really explanatory, orients you to the skill, and gets you rolling.
Yeah, and sometimes with the first time, it's okay to kind of be this verbose because you need to tell them everything that, at least quite a few things that they can do.
Expectations, yeah.
Yeah, and then when they come back, you want to reward them for this behavior. So we want this to be a habit that they instill, because the more times that they come back and use the skill, the less stress that they're going to have. So even if it's, they don't come back the next day and they come back weeks later, we're still going to say, welcome back, because we were welcoming them and we want them to come back.
So let's break these turns down just a little bit. So each part of those storyboards was a conversational turn, and it really includes 2 parts. One is what's going on. So the customer said something, it's the first time, or the customer said something and it's the 5th time, right? What's going on? That becomes the utterance and the situation, the top half of this card. Then Alexa's going to respond to that. So Alexa might say, welcome to the skill, here's what it's all about, and then they're going to prompt. And the prompt is about helping the customer move forward in the conversation. So there's really what's happening and how do we respond.
And sometimes there's no prompt. So if you need to end the session, you'll have this part of the card be blank, and that's okay too.
Like here's your assignment.
Yep,
Boom,
that's it.
Done at the end of the session. Great. So let's take a look at how that looks, the same skill that we were just looking at, how it looks with these cards in mind. So this is the first time experience. So if or actually it's one of each, right? We have the first time, the 5th time, and then just a general time that you're going. So in the first time, what we do is we say, Alexa, open College Coach, and then the situation, the second row of this thing would describe first time, 5th time, so forth.
And it doesn't have to just be welcome. This could be what's my favorite school. It could be what's, the degree program I like the best, or, what schools have I rated highly or low. It could be any of those.
And every skill needs to have help and stop and cancel and all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
so
I think you're not going to pass certification if you don't have those.
You don't have those, right. And so you can have help just in general, or you could have help while I'm searching, or that kind of thing. Okay, so another part of being personal is to build in these retention capabilities, because in order to do retention right, you kind of have to understand what the customer is doing, what they're trying to do, and then feed their needs, right, and help them out through it. So we have a few different retention mechanisms built into this skill. One is the streak counter, right? So it's coming back every 5th time. Good job, celebrating what's been happening, that kind of stuff.
There's also the call to action, come back and tell me what you think. And it doesn't, even though we're saying come back tomorrow and tell me what you think, it could be weeks later. We're going to remember that they had this assignment and then remind them. So they can say, oh, I don't remember. We just reassign it to them and keep them going.
So one way to think about retention is, once the person is using your experience, what can they do to keep them using it? So you want to think about depth of use within that session, and also think about how do I get them to come back? And you want them to remember your skill, remember what's going on, and have motivation to return. There's another aspect of this that people often munch together, so I'm going to separate them. It's engagement or discovery, right? So that's how do you get people to use your skill in the first place? Okay, so that's retention.
So that actually is a good segue into be relatable. So with be relatable, you want to talk with them and not at them. So in that case of, you want to have a lot of retention and you want to really engage them, sometimes we feel like we just want to throw everything into that phrase, and that could actually be a really bad idea.
Yeah. So let's give some examples of this.
Oh, I love a do-don't.
Good old do-don't.
Anyway, you'll see a lot of those in the design guide.
Yep.
So in this case, we want to essentially have Alexa respond back to them with kind of a one breath test. So if you can say it in one breath without exhausting yourself, that's probably a good thing. So in this example, the user would say,
Oh yeah, Alexa, open College Coach.
welcome back. How would you rate CU Boulder? It was short and it was sweet.
Very tight, right?
Yeah. So in the don't,
Yeah, Alexa, open College Coach.
welcome back. Glad to see you here again. Your last assignment was to review a school based on its academic program. So how would you rate CU Boulder on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best?
Right, so a
was a
few
lot.
things wrong there, right?
Yeah.
So it was a lot. The punctuation wasn't correct, so that the pacing wasn't very good.
Yeah.
The call to action wasn't the right thing at the end. Like it didn't say what's the rating at the end. It said with a scale of 1 to 5. Being the
Yeah,
best.
so a lot of times we'll say a phrase like, where are you going? And for Alexa, you actually want to say it as, you're going where? That putting it at the end makes it more memorable for the user to respond back to Alexa with the correct answer.
Yeah, it's a little what is misintuitive? What is unintuitive?
Unintuitive.
Yeah, it's a little unintuitive because when you read it, you're actually going to feel more comfortable with a topic sentence and supporting points, right?
Right.
Because that's how we read and that's how we scan things easily. In voice, there is no scanning, right? You just hear it all. It's all active. And so that's why you want to backload the prompt. So after you write everything down, put it on a piece of paper and then read it between two people, and that'll give you a much better feel for what your experience is like. You might think it's brilliant when you write it, and then go, ooh, I got to rewrite all these.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Tone it down, Shakespeare.
More
like,
time.
yeah.
Tone it down. Shakespeare. Wow. Keep it going. Props to Shakespeare. Use it. Yeah, all right. Yeah, tone it down, Shakespeare. I think. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next part about being relatable is making sure that you do things in context. Make like when the user is ready for it at the right time. So in-skill purchasing is a great example of this because I've seen both extremes of this, where people will put their in-skill purchases way deep into the skill where people never even find it, or they put them way up front and don't explain the value of what you're delivering. And for me, in-skill purchases is all about unlocking more value for the customer, right? Like a one-time purchase would be like, I want to unlock a level or unlock a new capability. Or a subscription would be about, I have fresh content all the time, so let's just keep it going.
That would be a great case for a college coach, because we could have different kinds of coaches with different voices that you could have a subscription for.
Get off there, get out there, get your school done. Like I want that coach. I totally
I think
want
I
that
need
coach.
the Zen coach.
You want the
actually.
Zen coach? I'm totally about the stress coach. All right. Hey, different strokes for different folks, I guess. All right. So then consumables, that's where you buy something and you use it up. So it might be like hints or stuff like that.
Extra lives in a
Extra
game.
lives in a game. So for all of these, the key for being relatable is to offer them at the right moment, right? It's to think about, now's a good time to help them get into that next level, or they're struggling with this question in a quiz. Let's give them a hint. They have a chance to answer it. Or in College Coach, they might say, well, I've given you an assignment. Do you want to hear a podcast from a celebrity college coach that can give you more information? At those right moments, you can sort of pull this together. Cool. So the next one
is be available. So you need to be able to respond as expected. So in the case of College Coach, that a student's coming in and expecting to get some advice about what colleges they should look at, because they probably, may be kind of down in the mouth about, where should I look?
Yep. So let's do some examples of this. There's a set of skills, a style of skills, I guess, which are all about call and response. Right? They're user initiative. The user is taking the initiative throughout the entirety of the conversation. So play sounds, give me a music artist.
Set a timer.
Set a timer. It's a
Turn
great
on a
example.
light. But these are all ones where Alexa doesn't actually respond vocally. She just does the thing. Right?
Just does it, right? Yeah, gets it done. So those are great, and they're actually super fast. Like I would have never said, oh man, pushing the 3 on my microwave is too hard. Like,
Oh, it's hard.
yeah, set a timer for 3 minutes is what I do now for everything. But for the skill building community, this is kind of a hard space to be in because they're very lightweight, they're very simplistic, and they're very hard to build a business around, right?
Yes.
So it's a great experience. Certainly, if you have a way to do it, do it. But I think there's other kinds of skills that you might be interested in as a skill builder. The other end of the spectrum is system initiative.
So that's like what, a quiz, adventure game?
Right, where Alexa is leading the entire experience. Yeah, so in a quiz, I guess Jeopardy would say, here is your clue, and then you'd be like, here is my answer, and clue, answer, clue, answer. And as long as the user is just following Alexa's instructions, it's great. The problem comes when you want to sort of step off the rails a little bit, do things a little bit on your own. So what it means is you can really only build a skill that's so complex, right? It's got to be fairly straightforward to keep this system
So
working.
like if I didn't know what was the first car made or I wanted to see a picture of it, this would completely break this skill. We would have to build that in to make it more complex. And
like you're saying, if you're in the quiz and you say, actually give me some background story on this, or tell me about this.
What does this first car even look like?
Like show me that person, show me that car. Yeah, that's a great example. And so you see this with adventure games too, and they start to rub up against this boundary, right? Because you could say, go into room, A, B, C. B, go into room, A, B, C. I want to go back to the last room. Oh, how do you do that, right? Because now you've done something they didn't expect. So that brings us to mixed initiative. So mixed initiative is the combination of the two, where parts of the experience, Alexa's leading the conversation, and then parts of the experience, the user takes the conversation in a new direction, and then Alexa is cooperatively helping you get to the task that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so with College Coach, we had that kind of disruptive flow where we asked, what size school, are you interested in?
What's my favorite?
Yeah, and you say, what's your favorite? And that's completely disruptive. So in mixed initiative, Alexa can take that as a new piece of information and then run with it.
Yeah, and you notice how in that experience, we still got to the point where you got an assignment, told you to go check out Arizona State University, and we go on our way. So it still is goal-oriented and cooperative in that sense, but it allows for the person to go a little bit broader. So let's look at some examples of system initiative and where it kind of breaks down for folks. So here's an example where you're ordering tickets, and you've just said, hey, tell me about movies near me, and then let's go see how this would play out, to give it a listen.
Find a movie near me.
You can browse movies that are coming soon, or I can give a recommendation. What would you like to do?
Find A Wrinkle in Time.
You are in the Browse Movie section. Say stop to return to main menu.
Okay, so...
That was a little rough.
Right, you have to sort of imagine an imaginary menu system and know how to get back up around. And the ironic thing is, the skill knew how to answer that question. It's just you weren't at the right node in the menuing structure.
It was just too strict.
Too strict, right? So that's an example of system initiative. The way to fix that in a bug fix style way is to draw more lines and make more commands work in these different moments. But that gets onerous to go fix it in all those ways. Let's look at another one. So here is an example of a food reordering skill. And so I'm at the moment where I've got my order all figured out. I know what I'm going to go buy. So let's hear how this goes. It's the next step.
You can place this order or change something. Which would you like?
Change the location.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. You can place this order or change something. Which would you like?
Change something.
Okay, you can change the pickup time, change the location, change the pickup method, or change the order item. What would you like to do?
Change the location.
Okay, so
oh boy, that was rough.
Again, the skill knew how to change location, but you had to go through the system of change something and then change location.
It was very repetitive. Change location, change pickup, change order item.
Right.
It didn't really have to go through all of that.
So what you'll find is that if you use a flowcharty kind of system, you'll be able to build a good system initiative kind of a skill. But you've got to work really hard to make sure that the customer is not going to do anything off of the path, right? Because otherwise they end up having a very bad experience. As long as they stay on the path and everything's happy, it'll be okay.
But that never happens.
Never happens. So as we talk about advancing the state of the art as a community, how we talk about going beyond just user initiative and system initiative, we've got to think through what's it mean to go mixed initiative.
So the process that I use, coming from more of a screenwriting background, is I start with a happy path script. So this is a good way to document the conversation that the user is going to have with Alexa. So in the case of College Coach, it's going to be the first time that they use my skill. where they're going to say, Alexa, open College Coach, and she's going to give them that big welcome, telling them, what they can do in this skill. And then we take that script, and then we're going to map it to those turns that we showed you earlier. So the top box is going to be the user dialogue,
said, yep.
is the utterance.
Yep.
The situation is launch for the first time. And then we take that chunk of dialogue for Alexa and we split it into those two parts. So the response and then the prompt, that question, so they can keep engaging with the skill.
Yeah, and think of the response as the part that says, I acknowledge what you just said.
Yeah.
And then the prompt as, let's go do this, right? That's sort of the split for it. And then that yields a set of turns that come together to form a storyboard.
Yeah, a storyboard, just like in film, it's a linear flow through time. You can't go back in time. And what this is trying to show is how a normal conversation would happen. And sometimes that can be disruptive, and sometimes it can follow that happy path. You will just create different storyboards for those variations, and it's a much easier thing to read through than a flowchart.
Yeah. So I will admit, though, it's a little bit uncomfortable. So there's something magical about a flowchart. You can trace your finger down it, and you're like, I can do this, and then branch and do these things. It feels good, I admit. But it's a false sense of security because it doesn't actually map out everything a conversation can do. And so we need to have a way to create these storyboards and understand that they're not exhaustive. Yet, we need to have an exhaustive design of our experience. So let's talk about how we do that, how we build these design artifacts. So for this, we're going to need a canvas. Today, what I'm going to be showing you is Adobe XD. It can really be any canvas. It could be any of these kinds of things. But let's take a look at it. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
And we're using XD. It's a free program. You could use other programs like Sketch. Essentially, we're just showing a way for you to easily make turns and templatize your designs.
Yeah. I've tried PowerPoint and things like that. It just doesn't work as well because you have to be able to zoom in and out. So here's an example of one of those turns. I'm all zoomed into it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll zoom back out and I'll show you the regions of the canvas that we have, and then we can dive into each region. So there's a card. If I zoom out of this, what I have is a grid of all the possible turns that my skill can do. All of my welcomes, all of my check-ins, all of my coaching experiences, my helps, and everything like that. Then if I zoom out a little bit more and come over to here, I see sort of the designer bread and butter, right? These are all of the scenarios. So I have like the first time storyboard, the fifth time streak, the disrupted one. Here's one where we've got an error through the case of help. And so one last section of this would be, I have the templates. So these are just the basic unfilled in templates that I can copy and paste if I want to make a new thing. So maybe we talk through these scenarios.
Yeah, so the scenarios, these are the storyboards we were talking about. So this one is the first time. So if you look, it's not a huge storyboard. It's just 3 cards. They don't have to be super extensive because flowcharts, when you're building them, can be exhausting. Thinking about all those use cases. Here we can kind of simplify that so you can get back to doing the fun stuff, kind of writing conversations and figuring out how it's going to work with all these new features you're putting in.
Yeah, totally. And I even think some of these first ones, these happy path ones, they're more about, is my skill valuable than they are full-on design. Because you've got to get into the nitty-gritty edge cases, and storyboards allow for that too. Like we could come up with a crazy scenario and just say something, like we did. Like we said, what if, while you're asking questions about the college, the person says, tell me about my favorites?
Yeah.
And we go, I don't know, let's figure that out. So then we made the disrupted storyboard that had that moment in it and just made sure we figured it out. So what happens is, the process here is, I'm sort of cruising along, making storyboards, thinking of scenarios, and then at some point I go, like they say, I want an engineering degree. Cool, make my storyboard. And I go, what if they say pickle? Like they say something I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well what I'll do is I'll just go grab a card for pickle, drop it into the larger grid, and so I have it captured. I don't need to make a storyboard for every possible error case, but I do need to have if the user said something that I don't understand in my slot, in this situation, how do I respond? You have to have every one of those. So you add it to the list over here. So what I find happens is the process goes something like this. We start, as the skill builder duo, we start building a few storyboards. And that causes us to generate these cards for all the turns. Then we sort of hit this moment of diminishing returns where I don't find myself making more. I might be refining cards, but not really making more cards. And then pretty soon you're like, yeah, I think that's it. Then we go out, let's find some more people. We find people on the team, other places of the company, and we go, all right, I'll pretend to be Alexa, you pretend to be human with your
Go back
script.
to those scripts.
How does it go, right?
Yeah.
And then through that process, we find some more cards and we find some more things. So that's one thing, and we keep working out customers to find more cards.
Well, I often find that once you get past building all your storyboards, really what you're doing is you are doing the first steps of writing in your intents and slots. So really what we're changing at this point is figuring out the slots that we would put in. There's many different dialects across this great country. So there's different ways to say things, and oftentimes I won't pick up something that maybe somebody from the West Coast would pick up, since I'm originally from the East Coast.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where, you know, we would eventually be changing those slots over time, but not necessarily recording that here. That's really to go back into the dev portal and really start building that
building
skill.
your interaction model, right? Yeah, we find things all the time that way. Like in this one, we found that somebody said, I don't know. And we're like, okay, I guess we need a Ting Yank slot, right? Like what if we don't know what's going on? We can totally add that. The next part of the process that I see folks going through is that they start to think through, well, I have a welcome for the first time, and I have a welcome for the 5th time. Hey, what about a welcome for all the other times, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I better add that card. Hey, what about a welcome for when I have a premium coach? Maybe the coach should pipe in, right? So you can start to think about, independent of storyboards and timelines, you can think about these capabilities that your skills have.
So how do you copy and paste these?
Oh, okay.
We got
So-
some few tricks, right?
So a couple little tricks for you, just so you can see how this plays out. This is all out in the GitHub repo. You can have the links to it. So what I have found is that you don't try to select these whole pieces. Just click the title, and then that selects it, and now I can paste. So I've got that guy, and I can move it around or whatever I might want to do. Then the other piece is I can grab this, and if I drag it horizontally, it sort of reveals stuff for notes. So now I can have a conversation with my developer.
Yeah, and we were kind of doing that back and forth. I was designing pieces, and then you were like, well, I kind of need some notes for how I'm going to build that. So especially if you have a team of designers and developers, they're going to need to have that conversation back and forth, which means this document is not a rigid document. It's a living document that changes over time as your skill changes.
That's great, because a lot of times what happens is you sort of give up on the flowchart and the code becomes the design.
Yeah.
Right? So the next thing I've done is I've expanded this card down, and now there's space for screens. I could have a round screen, a rectangular screen, or whatever, and then notes about how that might play out. So I've got the sort of lightweight version, which is just the script, and I can rip through it, and I've got the more detailed version, which gives, documents what this is all about. Now, how will the developer go implement this? Because there's no lines and flows, and how do I do if-then, or that kind of stuff. So what you would do as a developer is particularly, I'll talk to you as if you're using the SDK. And in the SDK, there's a notion of a can handle and a handle. And so what you would do is I zoom into any card, and in fact, I could take all the cards and shuffle them up. The order doesn't matter at all. And I go, okay, I will implement the top half of this card as a can handle. So Alexa Open College Coach, launch for the first time. And then the bottom half is the handle.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So, I mean, the coding part still is very complicated and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff. You have to work through all the pieces. But really, you can just start like playing these things out. Okay. So with that, let's go back to the deal here. So that was thinking about design artifacts, thinking about a canvas and how it's going. Any other thoughts or questions or tips you would give to designers for that?
I would say if you feel that you need to script it out more, do so. Write it out as you would a screenplay, and then practice it first, especially if you are new to using design tools. The canvas can seem overwhelming because it is an infinity canvas.
Yeah.
Things get lost, things get really small, and that's okay. Like sometimes you just need to do things very low fidelity on paper instead of going to the design tool, and that's fine.
Another thing that we've done internally that's been really helpful is we use sticky notes. So you have one sticky note for the top half, so like what the person said and what the situation is, and then a second sticky note for the response and the prompt. And that allows you to like mix and match them a little bit and so forth. It's not good. It's good for sketching because you can lay out some scenarios and storyboards and you can brainstorm. It's really good group activity and super active for it. But also you need to document it in something like this because you actually need the combination of the storyboards and that grid. In fact, all you really need at the end of the day is the grid. The storyboards just give you confidence that you've actually thought through the key scenarios that you're trying to unlock for your customers.
I've also found that the storyboards are very good for presenting it to other groups. So if I'm trying to say, hey, I want to build this skill and I need more people on this to help me with it, often I could sell that to the group saying, hey, why don't we act this out? And you're going to see that the skill really has value.
Yeah. So let's recap the 4 design principles. So we had be available. So being available is all about letting the people use the functionality of your skill whenever they feel like it. Right?
Yeah, and also that your skill should work as they expect it to work.
Yeah, right. Utterances, intents, slots, make use of all those things. Cool. Well, then we had be personal.
Yeah, so definitely tailor your skill experience to however your user is using your skill.
The simplest trick for that one is memory. Just be different every time you come back to the experience and respect that they've been there before and they understand how the skill works over time. Cool. And then we had be relatable.
Yeah, so, make sure that you're not loading up all these jargon-heavy words and that, your utterances and, you're matching what your users are saying and that your responses to those utterances are very short and sweet.
One of the ones I think about a lot for be relatable is on a web page, I can have a lot of stuff and people can just skim it and ignore the parts they don't care about. And so in voice, it's way more critical to think about what is the context right now and give you just exactly what you need because it's a very active experience. It's not passive at all. You're going to get what you need.
Well, time is also very valuable and you don't want to waste anyone's
Don't want to waste your time. And then the last one. So we had, let me go through this again.
Be available, be personal, be relatable.
I've totally lost out on the last one.
Wow.
Why can't I remember the last one? Be available.
Oh
my
man.
gosh, that's my favorite one
No,
too.
we had be adaptable, right? We have to adapt to the user.
Right. So did I say be available first?
Yeah, we
That's
did.
why I lead it with my favorite one.
We did it
All right.
out
So
order,
let's
that's why.
then talk about be adaptable. So be adaptable is where you let people say things in their own words, right? You don't force them to say it exactly the way. If you're in a quiz, they could say ABC or they could say the words or whatever. You let them work through it. Okay.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm excited we got to sort of get this experience kicked off. The design track today is going to be pretty awesome. There's a lot of great content coming up. Hope you can stick around and watch all of that.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to come up with and what you're going to design. And try out these new tools and new ways to look at designing skills.
Yeah, in fact, I think that you as the community are going to be inventing this more than we are. I'm just here to witness what's happening, and it's so exciting. Yeah. So please reach out, find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, whatever you do to talk to people, and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know as you experiment with this and find out things that you want to push it in a new direction or where you want to take things. I'd love to see what kinds of things you're building. A couple other things. Throughout this event, we have these raffles going on, so scroll down on the page that you're on, look for the survey, and then once you complete the survey, you can get included in the raffle.
Yeah, win lots of cool things.
Totally, and of course, hang out in the chat. Like, ask questions like crazy. We're here the whole time to do it. In fact, as we get off of this, we'll be in the chat for a few minutes between the sessions and during the next one.
Yeah, so send us your questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.